Yeah, I think it's a favorable matchup for the Vols.
It's pretty simple. Yeah,
Absolutely.
just go by the numbers.
That's I mean, yeah, it may not be the most entertaining matchup we could have gotten. I think I, along with everybody else, was really excited for the chance at a Chase Burns back in Knoxville, a little reunion, a little revenge game, perhaps, however you want to put it. I think I, along with everyone else, was excited for that possibility. But obviously not what happened, and probably a good thing for the Vols, all in all, because I feel like when it comes to those revenge games and things like that, a lot of times it does not go the way of the boys in orange. But with this one, I like the chance for the Vols against the Evansville Purple Aces. What a name, by the way. That being said, you absolutely cannot look over Evansville with the way things went. They beat their top seed in their regional, ECU, beat them twice, and a performance like that you absolutely cannot overlook the Purple Aces, because they were able to do that. That ECU was the 16th seed in the country for a reason.
Yeah, it was just crazy to see him jump out to a 2-0 lead in that
absolutely.
That region.
It was pretty crazy. They got a fast start, and it carried them throughout the rest of the regional. They were able to take down all the big threats. So the question is, will Evansville continue that momentum that they had in their regional coming to the super regional in Knoxville? I don't think so. I think there's just too much of a talent gap there. That last regional, it was the 16th regional, the 16th seed. It is pretty much always going to be the closest regional with the most craziness going down, because it is the 16th seed, and it's the lowest top seed, if you will, in the regional play. So I'm not super shocked that of all the regions, that's the one where a 4 seed came out and made some magic happen. I don't think it's something that the Vols should be super duper concerned with. But that being said, there's always the fact that if you look at the Vols midweek performances, that seems to be where that offense struggles the most at times.
Yeah,
is against those midweek opponents. Mm-hmm. Look back at the UNC Asheville game at the start of the season. Vols won that game 3-2. So there is a little bit of a hesitancy for me to say, oh, this is about to be a blowout and the Vols are going to take this one and run with it. When they get against that midweek pitching, sometimes the offense looks a little bit off, a little bit like they kind of have to readjust. But usually towards the end of those games, they readjust and they make things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you talk about you're not sure if we're going to pile it on Evansville. I just based off the way we played, specifically the last 2 games where we had 4 home runs in one of those, and then 5 in our final game versus Southern Miss. And that first game, Amick hit 2. That last game was Cal Stark hitting 2. So it's other guys stepping up, not just the headliners that are Blake Burke and Christian Moore. The hitting lineup is just extremely deep at this point. And the pitching has really held on. They didn't give up many runs last weekend, whether it be Drew Beam, Nate Snead, AJ Kazi. Those guys have really held it down.
Most definitely. What I'm looking forward to in this regional the most as well, though, is just looking at how the Vols play against these teams that don't have the best pitching staff. The Purple Aces, they do have their own ace, and Kenton Deverman is his name. Very good freshman left-hander, and against ECU, only allowed 1 run on 3 hits, 8 innings. So the kid can throw, and I'm not as worried about him as I am potentially facing their less talented pitching staff, because with the Vols, they get used to the elite of the elite playing in the SEC. They get used to 90-mile-per-hour arms, and it is such an adjustment when you go from practicing against a 90-mile-per-hour fastball to an 80-mile-per-hour fastball, and just everything slows down. It can really throw off your timing, but the Vols have had some time since their own regional. They'll have their chance to get their momentum going, even though they had a lot of momentum coming out of that regional. I think that they're not going to struggle with the Purple Aces, but you never know.
You never know, but I completely expect for them to jump on early, and I think our pitching will hold up, especially Friday with Drew Beam coming out there, just and then going from there, like I just don't see Evansville really competing much with this overall number 1 seed we have in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough adjustment for Evansville. And with that, looks like we have our guy
Yes, sir.
is in, I think.
There he is.
Can you guys hear me?
Can't hear him. Of course. Of course.
If it ain't
We'll get
one
it figured
thing,
out.
it's the other.
Let's try that. Griffin, say something.
Can you guys hear me?
I know what it is. I know what the issue is.
That summer show, baby. Everything's on the
Hey.
fly.
Well, we got Riley working on it, but Justin, with this Evansville team, what is the scenario where they have a chance against us?
It's just they just can't have any errors defensively. You let Tennessee and their offense just take advantage of silly mistakes, then you'll never be in the game to begin with. That's the key for Evansville to get
Griffin.
started.
Give us the test here.
You guys got me?
Yes, we do.
Let's go. Hey, got it figured out finally.
Let's go.
We were a little rushed getting in here and getting things set up, but hey, we figured it out. We got Griffin in here. Griffin, welcome into the show. Finally,
Thank you.
in here. Obviously, talking some Vol baseball,
Of course.
all things what they're doing, and of course their matchup with the Evansville Purple Aces. How are you feeling about this matchup?
If I'm a Vol fan, I'm feeling good, of course. However, it's the NCAA tournament in baseball. And what I've noticed over the past week and a half, 2 weeks, is that this might be one of my favorite postseason tournaments in sports because it's unpredictable. And guys, if you watched last Friday, so many top 16 national seeds lost. And all ESPN wanted, all the media wanted was Chase Burns to come back to Knoxville. And not only did Chase Burns not come back to Knoxville, East Carolina gets beat at the number 1 seed. They don't come back to Knoxville. And the 3 seed VCU doesn't come to Knoxville. It's the Evansville Purple Aces that are becoming to Knoxville. And as an Indiana boy, I know Evansville. I know those Purple Aces. And they stick around. They're a feisty team. They like to compete. Something that jumps out at me is when they beat Kentucky, guys, in basketball a couple years ago, shocked the country 1 week when Kentucky was top 5. And so does Tony Vitello and the boys take this team lightly? You can't, because they took down the Pirates at East Carolina, who have been a great team, great program for years. But I think with that question that Dami asked Justin, it's not necessarily what Evansville needs to do to beat Tennessee. It's if Tennessee handles business, does their job, plays Tennessee baseball, they get the job done. And I think that's what it is. You don't make mistakes, you win this series in 2 every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at this point, I'm more concerned about the Vols not playing up to their expectations than I am about Evansville playing up to theirs. I think the issue is going to come if, say, Beam gets out there and he's in a little bit of a funk like he was at the start of his game against Indiana in regional play. If he gets out there and he's a little bit off and he doesn't quite have his stuff going, Evansville will be able to take advantage of that. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of, will he go out there and play the type of Drew Beam ball that we've seen all season and, go for 6 innings or whatever it ends up being. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to, can the Vols play up to their expectations and not down to their opponent?
Yeah, and you really just don't want to see Evansville melt the way Indiana did in that game too. I mean, that pitcher who just couldn't throw a strike, when it was all said and done, just completely faded away. And we got on top of Indiana like that and never went away. So that's what Evansville's got to look out for.
And Evansville competed. Like, I don't know if you guys watched that East Carolina game, but they were not willing to lay down when East Carolina took a lead. And I think that's different than what the Vols have been tested with thus far. Yes, they had to battle against Southern Miss in the regional final, but they took off against Northern Kentucky, took off against a weak IU pitching staff, and then, let's be honest, they hit 5 home runs against Southern Miss in the regional final. Cal Stark hit 2. Lindsey Nelson was on fire. So I think, like you said, Riley, can't play down to your level of competition. You just got to keep the bats going. And I like what you said, Justin, about Drew Beam. Like, he's got to be more dialed in. I saw Drew actually on Sunday after the Vols won the regional championship. I saw him down at media because we were walking out. He was walking in. He was like, man, I got to play better next week because I want to come see you at your media. And that's the best part.
That's awesome, Griffin. You're gonna be covering the games this weekend as well.
Yeah, I'll be over there and hope to see as many of you guys as possible at Lindsey Nelson. It's going to be a fun environment, and I know Vol Nation is going to bring it. I mean, everybody has seen the Billy Amick walk-up song on social media with the stroke where everybody's going like that.
Dude, we're doing that. So I'm in the control room for these games. We're doing that in the control room. And
That's what I'm saying.
So much fun. Yeah, he's captivated the entire fan base.
It's going to
Exactly.
be interesting, though. Vol fans pretty upset about the time slates for these games. I believe the first one is at 3 on Friday, and the second one is 11 a.m. on Saturday. So it might be a little bit of a challenge for the Vol fans to show up. Nonetheless, the ones who care about baseball, I mean, they're going to pack that thing out. This college in particular has a fever for baseball unlike anything I've ever seen. And I know our Twitter fan base is riled up because we've seen so much about ECU and how they have a great home environment, and that the Purple Aces overcame that. We don't want them walking out of Lindsey Nelson alive. The fans are going to bring it.
Hey, they don't have John Fulkerson over there.
That's right.
What do you think about those time slots, Dom?
I think it's just a result of the fact that I mean, the NCAA assumes we are going to, beat the tar out of them. They really don't think it's going to be much of a matchup, so they're not putting it on prime time, which, I mean, I respect it. But at the same time, we're the number one team in the nation. I really think that we should have at least closer to primetime slots. It shouldn't be primetime, but I mean, Tennessee baseball is the team to watch right now in the world of college baseball. No other team's got a stadium like us that gets that loud, that crazy for its size. I mean, it's a tiny stadium, but it's nuts there.
And to that point, Dom, they have been the team to watch since Tony Vitello has arrived on campus.
Exactly.
And I brought this up on Monday, and I'm going to bring it up again. Tony Vitello in the last 4 years.
Yeah, this is good.
203-60 overall, 12-0 in regionals, 3 50-win seasons, 4 straight super regional appearances, 2 SEC regular season championships, 2 SEC tournament championships, and 2 College World Series appearances, trying to make it 3 with this weekend's series. So just an unreal start to his career at Tennessee for Tony Vitello. He is going to continue to elevate the Vols, and they are becoming the brand in college baseball. I say this, there's this filter on TikTok, right, where people will go through, and there's 5 slots, right, and it's different colleges, and it cycles through these colleges. You get a random one, and when it's going through and Tennessee pops up, every single time, every single TikTok I've watched where Tennessee has popped up, they get slotted into the baseball slot, and that is a result of Tony Vitello.
That's so interesting.
That's so cool because like going into like UT, I'm thinking about the football team, the basketball team, but now our baseball team really is a powerhouse. We're really a marquee team for the entire league. I mean, you talk about the home runs, of course, like we're must watch. And yeah, you're absolutely right.
The crazy part is I think that 2022 team, that's what, like the Drew Gilbert Grand Slam in 21 puts Tennessee on the map. The 2022 team, people were like, holy crap, this team is one of the best regular season teams we've ever watched. And then when they lose to Notre Dame in the Supers, it's like, okay, that was super fun. That's probably not going to happen again. And this team is objectively better offensively. And that's absurd to even think about because batters 1 to 9, plus you had Dollander, Beam, Burns. It's like that team was untouchable. And now you have this team with probably the heaviest favorite to make it to Omaha, and not only get to Omaha, but to do some damage over in Nebraska that the team in 2022 couldn't even get to.
Yeah, it's a super interesting evolution that this program has had because it's been a mix of getting super highly touted transfers and guys like Billy Amick and Zane Denton last year and Cannon Peebles. And it's been these big additions through the portal, but also an influx of homegrown talent like Christian Moore, Blake Burke, guys that have done the time in the program, worked their way up the lineup, and started and really just assumed a leadership role and things like that you can't get from a transfer. I mean, you can, but it's very, very rare to get somebody that has the effect on a team like Christian Moore does from a transfer. And it's because you have leaders like that are being cultivated within the program and staying despite, maybe not getting as much playing time as they'd like their freshman and sophomore year, they get out there and then they show the world what they're made of in their junior year while wearing the Tennessee orange. It is remarkable that Tony Vitello has been able to keep the amount of talent on the roster that he has, despite them being as talented as they are. And we're seeing it when they finally get the playing time that they're wanting. When they finally do get on the field, they're putting out a product that is just insane for guys that have, just sat back and bided their time to get on the field.
And the craziest thing of it all to me is the fact that Vol baseball was basically irrelevant for a long, long time. There's been some legendary names come through, but there's not a ton of history in that sport for the Vols. And then I just don't know how Tony came and just started something seemingly out of nowhere with no real momentum and just, luckily we have the SEC resources, but at the same time, no other school's doing that. No other school has came out of nowhere and just had this rapid rise to the top. And the other thing too is those guys that are riding the bench, they're riding the bench for a reason. The coaching here is impeccable. And I don't think that those guys would develop into the players that they are without the coaching staff that Tony Vitello has assembled.
Yeah, and Justin, I think of you because you've grown in being a baseball fan over the last several years and you've worked the games. Yeah. And Riley brings up a good point. Tony can recruit his tail off. However, you probably see this all the time working in graphics and replay, Justin. It's also about the guys that come from the state of Tennessee, like you two. It's
it's Cal Stark, the catcher, who's from
Cal Stark.
Years.
It's Cal Stark. It's Dylan Loy. It's Kirby Cannell. It's Kavaris Tierz. It's Jared Dickey. These guys start in the program, and then they end up like Kirby Cannell. He's had the most appearances in school history. And these guys are developed by Frank Anderson on the mound, or they get reps at the plate, or they play defensively in a pinch hitting role, and then they move up. Someone like Trey Lipscomb, who sat the bench for 3 years and then gets drafted, and he's already in the show after 2 years. It's just this unbelievable machine that is Tennessee baseball. And Dom, you nailed it on the head. It was irrelevant, and now, boom, you get a fiery head coach with a great coaching staff. Fingers crossed that Elander can stay around because with all these jobs opening up. But it's been so fun to watch, and it's brought so many eyes to the program, and it isn't a better time to be a fan of Diamond Sports on this campus.
Yeah, absolutely love what Vitello has done, and you're seeing this resurgence of Tennessee baseball, and part of that comes from him and his fiery personality and, his success on the field, and part of that comes from the players and how they're playing and the antics they get up to. So much of the things around this program have built into like this snowball that's going to keep on growing and growing, because now, they're getting new facilities.
Yes.
And, a huge renovation to Lindsey Nelson Stadium that's going to continue to draw more and more people. And that's going to draw in revenue, and that's going to draw in recruits. And it's going to be a snowball. It's going to continue building. And as long as Danny White can keep Tony Vitello in the orange and white, I feel like this program is not going anywhere.
Yeah, this saying is build it and they will come, especially here in Big Orange Country. If you put out a winning product, then people will show up. And it's led us to be able to fill out this stadium and, really overflow a stadium that's not big enough, because there's so much support. It's why we're getting that renovation, and I'm so excited for it.
It's crazy, too, just how much Tony's identity that he's built for this program reflects the state of Tennessee and Tennessee athletics. It's just a perfect fit. I can't think of a guy more Tennessean and more UT than Tony V. He's just that guy right now. He's the heartbeat of this campus. Everywhere he goes, people are saying, oh, my God, that's Tony V. And they're pointing at him. They're asking if they can take his photo. Like, he is that guy. He's the king of the campus. It's unreal for a baseball coach to be that guy.
And he goes. Like, you see him at basketball, you see him at softball, you see him at baseball, you see him repping the Zakai Ziegler shirt jersey. And I think that's part of it all. That's part of the support within the athletic department. And that's why we see this university having, I think, its best athletic finish ever as a full athletic department. Women's rowing just moved up, got third at NCAAs. It's just absurd. when they weren't even ranked in the top 20 to start the season. It's contagious. Like Riley said, I think the snowball analogy is the perfect way to describe it. And I think Tony Vitello being at all these different sporting events, supporting all these different teams, recruiting all over the country, it's just been the reason why it just keeps expanding, and then success will come.
Yeah, it was the SEC All Sports Trophy? Is that what it was called?
3 years in a row.
3 years in a row. I mean, it doesn't get better than athletics on Rocky Top. And of course, part of me, I came to this campus, wanting to do sports journalism. And, that came with picking a school that I felt like was going to be good at sports. But my expectations were not this high.
No.
I figured, oh yeah, the Tennessee football brand, it's one of the biggest in the country. I'm sure they'll be at least decent. Like, that's a pretty safe bet. Okay. And then you got Tennessee women's basketball, which is the most historic brand in women's college basketball. I feel pretty safe with that. And I'm like, everything else, if it falls into line, it falls into line. Rick Barnes is great. And whatever with the baseball. And then since then, it's just been one thing after another. It's just been getting better and better and better. And we've got an exciting new age for the women's basketball program. The men's basketball program is doing better than ever. Baseball is doing better than ever. Softball is doing better than ever. Football's on the come up. It just feels like things have gotten better and better on the University of Tennessee campus since I've arrived. And I know I'm grateful and super happy that these are the teams I get to cover on a weekly basis. But I can't express enough just how impressed I was with just the rapid rise of Tennessee athletics across the board.
Yeah, everywhere you look, there's a number by our name. It's in everything school at this point. It's phenomenal. I don't take it for granted, especially us working in sports journalism. I mean, this is what we're here for. Every team we cover, every team we pay attention to is putting a good product on the field, on the court, whatever.
Can't go wrong anywhere on campus. And funny story real quick about the rowing finishing top 3. I remember my freshman year walking around and seeing signs saying, join the rowing team. And so for them to go from that to top 3 in the country, I don't even know how that happens just in the time that I've been here. So, I mean, Danny White is
incredible hires.
He's done insane. I don't know how we struck gold. It just happened, and it's been the best thing to happen to Tennessee athletics in a long, long time.
And shout out to Chancellor Dondi Plowman as well for setting that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Danny White is really good at, one, holding on to a name that he knows has been here and has done well. Like our head coach with swim and dive, Matt Kredich, he's the best of the best. And then he's also not gone and tried to hire the big name. He's tried to hire the next big name. And it worked over and over again. And that's the thing that's baffling, but it's also, that's what the best do. And that's why the biggest brands are the biggest brands. That's why Texas, Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, that's why those entire athletic departments are so good. And that the fact that Tennessee's in that conversation now, that the brand is so good, Vol Nation is so strong, it's really exciting to be a part of, and it's really exciting to cover. And that's what we get to see this weekend, bringing it back. That's what Lindsey Nelson's going to be all about. We got track in Eugene this week at Nationals, where there's several competitors that are fighting to make finals, score points at track. And then you have baseball trying to move on to Omaha. Yeah,
it's going to be an absolutely insane environment here on campus. If you can get here, I'm sure there's going to be tailgates and everything else as the Vols try to lock down a shot at Omaha. But it's going to be it for our first segment. Went pretty long. Went about 37 minutes. Like, wow. We're talking about some baseball, man. Look at you, Justin. Did you ever think you'd be able to go 40 minutes talking baseball on sports radio?
No, absolutely. And I couldn't do it without the enthusiasm of you guys. Y'all are great. Y'all pay attention to baseball so well. Y'all really set the path for me. Laid the carpet out for me. So
man, we appreciate you, Justin.
Now we're all going to enjoy the greatness that we'll get for the rest of the season.
Oh,
Vitello and the boys.
Absolutely. I'm sure it's not ending anytime soon. But with that, we're going to go to our first break. When we come back, talking maybe a little WNBA, maybe a little NBA, maybe some college football. There's some things going on, some news to talk about. We'll get to it right after this break. Volunteer Radio 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
90.3 The Rock thanks the UT Athletic Department for their support. The 2024 football Vols will play home games inside Neyland Stadium against SEC rivals Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, and others. AllVols.com for info with a link at WTKRadio.com. UT student ticket info is at bigorangetics.utk.edu. 90.3 The Rock says, go Vols.
The Rock thanks Fieldhouse Social, the Wednesday home for Rock Solid Sports, for their support. American craft food, beer, and cocktails, plus a 25-foot big screen at University Commons Way. Fieldhouse Social welcomes sports fans and others alike to enjoy dishes like the citrus marinated chicken, grilled Faroe Island salmon, and smoked ribs. FieldhouseSocial.com or on Twitter and Facebook.
Volunteer Radio receives support from the Tennessee Smokies Baseball, the AA Southern League affiliate of the Chicago Cubs, whose 2024 regular season schedule features 6-game homestands Tuesday through Sundays, now into September at Smoky Stadium in Kodak. WTK's Rock Solid Sports will have weekly Smokies updates. TheSmokiesBaseball.com, and a link is at WTKRadio.com.
The Rock receives support from 71 South, a casual, family-friendly restaurant at the Baker Creek Preserve, 3726 Sevier Heights Road in Sono. 71 South features Wine Wednesdays, daily brunch from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., and all day on Sundays. 71SouthKnox.com for menu options and more.
Welcome back to your Wednesday night edition of Rock Solid Sports. I'm your host for tonight, Riley Haltom. Got Justin Clemmer producing next to me, Dom Throngard across the glass in the fishbowl, and Griffin Hadley on StreamYard. My co-sports director, Griffin Hadley. First
New
game,
leadership.
first show we've done where I think we've both been on at the same time since we found out.
I think you're right. Yeah, man, I can't wait. This next year is going to be a whole lot of fun. Just lead in Rock Solid with you, Riley, but also there's, like we talked about before the break, Tennessee sports are on the up, and it's going to be fun to be able to cover those and see what Rock Solid can do, just being live, being at events, as well as giving all of you guys in Vol Nation around the Knoxville area the best coverage we can on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights.
Of course, always trying to elevate the product, trying to elevate what we're doing. But beyond that, we gotta talk a little bit of WNBA, because I feel like
we
it's
have to.
as ever.
Speaking about elevating the product, I mean, we
Man.
got people talking about the WNBA that would have never done it before, and they have eyeballs on them now, and that's why controversies like this Caitlin Clark and Kennedy Carter has come up, and it's really interesting. You got people on one side saying, "Oh, you got to protect this superstar that's coming in, like Caitlin Clark," and then the other side is like, "Oh, don't baby her. This is what the league is like. We've always been physical, and y'all just find it out." So it's a really interesting mix on both sides. And where do y'all stand?
Yeah, I absolutely love the direction that the league is going. I feel like there's just so many more eyes on it, and more people are tuning in, and I'm loving it. But at the same time, it's got to be balanced, right? Because as big of a superstar as Caitlin Clark is, and as exciting of a player as Angel Reese is, and all these other fantastic rookies that have come into the league and really changed the talk around the league. I mean, you look and people are taking notice of the Rickea Jackson and the Cameron Brinks and the Camila Cardosos, and these rookies have been phenomenal for the league. But at the same time, the most marketable player in the entire league that's being hardly talked about is A'ja Wilson.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And she is actively, as we speak, developing a greatest of all time case for the WNBA. Now, for me, I'm still going Candace Parker personally. Not yet. She ain't there yet. But she's well on her way to being right there with the greats like Candace Parker or Sue Bird. She is right there, and she has got all of these accolades. You look, Rock Solid Sports alum Bryson Wright, he's been pushing the agenda on his Twitter all season. And it's because, I mean, if you look, there was this huge tweet that blew up today, and Bryson had like the first reply and has 3,000 likes right now. So shout out Bryson for getting the Twitter, the Twitter clout that he has. But he said A'ja has basically won every award you can in basketball at 27 years old. You look at this resume for A'ja Wilson, 2 times WNBA champion, chance for a three-peat this year, finals MVP last year, 2 times WNBA MVP, 2 times WNBA Defensive Player of the Year, Best WNBA Player ESPY Award, 5 times WNBA All-Star, WNBA Rookie of the Year, WNBA All-Rookie Team, 3 times All WNBA First Team, All WNBA Second Team, 2 times WNBA All Defensive Team, a WNBA All Defensive Second Team, 3 times she was the blocks leader, the Commissioner's Cup champion, and then of course she has all of her accolades outside of the WNBA, like World Cup MVP, NCAA champion, most outstanding player in the NCAA, Naismith College Player of the Year. So A'ja Wilson is actively developing a GOAT case, has some of the best stats in the league this year, is obviously right there at the top of the WNBA MVP ladder this year. This is a player that has a shot to go down as the greatest of all time. And yet all we're hearing about week to week is how did Caitlin Clark do? And don't get me wrong, Caitlin Clark, phenomenal player, phenomenal product, doing incredible things for a rookie in the WNBA. Should not go unnoticed, should not go undocumented. But at the same time, where is the coverage for people like A'ja Wilson who are shutting it down?
Yeah, it's frustrating because tonight you have the Aces playing the Dallas Wings. Those are the 2 top scoring teams in the league. They got Arike Ogunbowale for Dallas, leading the league in scoring, and right behind her, A'ja Wilson. Yeah, like you said, if you just watch her play, it's amazing. She can get to any spot she wants, bump people off the spot. Her mid-range is fantastic, and the coverage for her versus Caitlin Clark is huge difference right now because Clark isn't even playing well right now. All we're talking about are these people knocking her down, and meanwhile, you have A'ja Wilson doing things that she has been doing, like you say, keeping building on her GOAT case, and there isn't a peep about her.
Yeah, unfortunately, with just how it works, the WNBA has become so huge the past 2 years, largely because of what's happened with women's college basketball, and that's what's brought the eyes to it. So unfortunately, the media is keeping up with that instead of honoring the players that have stuck through not getting as many eyes on the sport and have tried to bring attention to this great game that it's like the WNBA has come so far as a league, and there are incredible players like A'ja Wilson that aren't getting the attention they deserve. But without a doubt, it's turning kind of into this WWE style drama about all the rookies instead of what's actually happening in the league, which you can't deny gets clicks and is entertaining. But at the end of the day, we kind of need to figure out the direction we're going to go with the WNBA and how this coverage is going to evolve to hold the WNBA in the same eyes and the same reverence that they do the NBA, instead of just having it be this league full of drama.
Yeah, guys, I think this is such a good conversation topic, just as far as sports media goes, or just talking about the current states on June 6th, whatever day it is, June 5th of sports, just because when I think about the W and the coverage it's received, I don't think I can think about any of the basketball that's being played.
It's all narrative right now.
I'm thinking about the narratives, and you have to have the narratives. Don't get me wrong. I started with Omaha Productions this week. I shadowed numbers on the board on Tuesday. I got to listen to Kenny and Pierre and D Mills and Mike go at it. And they talked about the W for a long time. And I listened to a lot of what they were saying. And you got to have the opposition, right? Like,
Yeah.
Angel Reese is a good thing, and Caitlin Clark is a good thing.
Mhm.
And when you have them in doses. But when it's blown out of proportions and Stephen A is getting mad at Monica McNutt, and Monica McNutt is yelling at Stephen A for the way they're covering the game. And, Pat McAfee's calling Caitlin Clark a white bee, and it's getting out of control. And the narrative is pushed so hard that someone like A'ja Wilson, who Draymond Green called the best thing since sliced bread in the WNBA, that's the tricky part. Like, there needs to be a world where you can have both. And that's where I'm at as a consumer, as a casual fan who's, slowly getting into it, as someone who's from Indianapolis, who is a Fever fan, if you will, who watches Caitlin Clark, and that's the team that's on when I'm at home. That's the tricky part. And so I'd like to see it move towards someone like A'ja Wilson, or the actual basketball that's being played, because it's a high level of basketball. The tricky part is what gets the clicks, what sells the tickets, what gets the views. and that's these rookies that you talked about, guys. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Cameron Brake, etc. And so, like, I'm looking for balance, but at the same time, like I said, it's not a bad thing because I think you need the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese because it makes it fun.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are storylines that have to do with the basketball, and that's what's blowing my mind about this coverage. If you would think about something, what is the biggest storyline going into this NBA Finals? It's Kyrie, right? Returning, playing against the Celtics.
Kyrie and Luka being a psycho. Yeah, it's them
One
too.
of them, I feel like it's Kyrie, but also like if you flip it on the other side, it's if the Celtics can win, like play that high level, because I think even though the Mavs are a lower seed, they have Kyrie.
Wait, save it. We're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk
Okay.
about it.
And last thing I'll
I'll
say
bottle
on
it
this-
up.
We can't
Bottle
get
it
too
up, put a
deep,
pin in
last
it.
thing I'll say on this WNBA discourse, heroes are great, but what's a hero without a villain? So I absolutely love
That's
kind of
great.
this dark side that's coming out of the W. I love guys like Dylan Brooks, like Patrick Beverly on the NBA side. So Kennedy Carter, Angel Reese, come on right in. Let's make some drama. I think it makes it absolutely fascinating.
I
to
love it.
watch.
And the thing is, there is my point to that was there are storylines that have to do with the basketball, right?
Mhm.
Last year, Skylar Diggins-Smith and Diana Taurasi on the same team get into it on the bench. This year, they played their first game against each other. You know how much coverage that got? Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets.
I don't know about
Yeah.
it until you said something.
Exactly. You had two former teammates, two of the highest level players in the league going at it after, getting into it on the bench last season, and that their time together on their old team ending together poorly. They get to play each other the next season, and you heard nothing about it. And this was before the whole Caitlin Clark, Kennedy Carter thing. It wasn't even like that. There was a hierarchy of the storylines. You just didn't hear about it because you know what you were hearing about the week before all this happened? Oh, Caitlin Clark's having a tough start to her rookie season. That was the extent of the coverage the W was getting so far. And I get it. Caitlin Clark is so phenomenal, so fun to watch. But you have to spread the love a little bit. Spread the love to some of these other players because right now it's just not happening. And like you said, I love the villains. I'm the same way. I'm the same way with the NFL, the NBA. I love the showboaty, the get up in your face.
Thing, yeah.
Exactly. I love that stuff. And so Angel Reese she's building a fan in me, and Kennedy Carter, same thing. I love seeing stuff like that. You've got to find the happy balance, right? Because what Kennedy Carter did, little over the top, not deserved. Caitlin Clark didn't deserve that. But
That's some
at the same
Draymond Green
it
level
is
heinous.
at that level, and at that level, it starts to get a little bit like, all right, chill out a little bit. But at the same time, you've got to strike that balance between the storylines and as exciting as these rookies are, what they're doing on the court versus these established players. And it's not like the beef and stuff has started with these rookies getting to the league.
Mhm.
There are pre-established rivalries and players that dislike each other. We can focus on those as well. Expose these new fans in the WNBA to some of the history of it, to some of the older rivalries, to some of these players that don't like each other, so that they can enjoy those storylines just as much as they enjoy these storylines with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese.
Yeah, it's not just a problem in the W. Dom, real quick, it's the problem with sports media in general. Like, you got all these good teams, the Pacers going on a crazy run, and all they want to talk about is Spike Lee and the Knicks. So it's a problem, across ESPN, across sports in general.
It definitely is. And that's what I was going to get at too, is the biggest issue out of all of this is that the media is also the new fans. The media was not on the W for a long time when they should have been. And so a lot of the media, they don't know the history of the league. They don't know what's happened. And so they're all new fans that came up with this rookie generation, and that's all they know. That's all they're comfortable covering because they haven't paid attention to the W like they should. And so that's one of the biggest issues right now with WNBA coverage is you have guys you have a lot of these classic NBA coverage guys who focused on the NBA, and that's a lot to focus on by itself, that are getting tossed on these WNBA beats that they truly don't know. And a lot of it is that they haven't had time to even pay attention, but there's a lot that just, they don't know much about the WNBA. And so they're focusing on what they know. And it's these same storylines that keep getting pushed over and over because they don't have the depth of knowledge. And so giving people better platforms to speak, like Candace Parker, I always love listening to her when she's talking.
Yes.
I think that it's a matter of promoting the right people in media and not trying to use someone's clout like Stephen A to talk about the WNBA, but put someone new on it who knows their stuff, who will bring attention to the game by knowing their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's similar to what Monica McNutt said in that big fight that she had with Stephen A. If he wanted to, he could have been covering the WNBA years before.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily an issue that he doesn't. Some people are just not going to be as in tune with certain sports. We talked about it last segment. Justin's not the biggest baseball fan. He still talks about it from time to time, but that's not his forte. He likes talking about basketball. That's okay. You just got to find the talent that wants to talk about the WNBA and give them the platform to talk about it. When you're talking, you can bring somebody in for a guest segment to talk about the WNBA. That's been a part of the WNBA conversations for a couple seasons. It's not impossible. It's not difficult. You just got to find the right people, find the right talent to talk about the things that they enjoy. It's okay.
Yeah, and we'll get there because we've done a really good job as a society, in my opinion, is pushing women into sports media, giving them microphones, giving them a voice. And now with an adjacent league that they can relate to coming up, I think it's just all going to assimilate and get much better.
Without a
Yeah,
doubt.
but-
I mean, we've seen it here at Rock Solid. There's tons of great women that have come through these doors.
Yeah, especially in recent years. Absolutely.
I think, before we go to NBA, I think I'm hopeful. And I'm hopeful because I think when you think back about the NBA, games used to be on tape in the 70s. Like, games weren't covered highly. It was NFL. It was college basketball. Nobody really cared until it grew and you had teams like the Showtime Lakers and Larry Bird was unbelievable. And then you move into Jordan and then it's can't miss stuff. I think this era of rookies and I think the influx of media, I think there's only a certain amount of stories and a certain amount of coverage because that's the starting point. And I'm hopeful that it expands. And when it expands, more stories come from it, more players get covered, more ball gets covered. And I think once beat reporters and once people start understanding the league better and have a sample size of coverage, that's where I'm hopeful that the stories get better. They get, more in depth, the features improve. And then I think that's where it goes from here. Similar to the growth of the NBA back, when it got bigger, when it wasn't really relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we move on to our next topic, we're going to talk a little bit about the college football playoffs, some times and whatnot have been announced, talk about the format a little bit. First, before we move on to that, just got to say, watch an Aces game. Tune into an Aces game.
They play
if you're
tonight.
listening.
And
Tune
WNBA League Pass is $30, so you can catch every game on the low.
Tune into the Aces because that is great basketball. That is fun basketball. That is the two-time champs trying to make it 3 this year. Tune into the Aces. That's great
what's really
basketball.
going on. Yeah.
That's what's really going on. That's the good basketball that you want to turn into. But that being said, well, let's talk a little bit about some other teams trying to make themselves champs in a different sport. It's the college football playoff. And of course, it's going to be a quick touch on this because there isn't too much college football news. And of course, you'll get plenty of that when we come around to the next semester and the next
definitely.
But we've got some times announced for the new format of the college football playoff. The what is it? Oh, I appreciate you, Justin. I was about to pull it up. Appreciate it. We got the first round playing games on the 20th and the 21st on ESPN and TNT, split between the
TNT?
two. Yeah, right?
That's cool.
Interesting, right? And of
Chuck
course,
talking college football.
yeah, that's gonna be fun. You got
Please.
yeah, right. Please. It would be really funny. But that Friday game, that first one, it's 8 p.m. And then that next day, the Saturday, you've got one you got one in all of the 3 major time slots, one at noon, one at 4 p.m., and one at 8 p.m. And then you've got the quarters with of course, all the big name bowls, the Fiesta Bowl, the Peach Bowl, the Rose Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. Those are going down on the 31st on a Tuesday. And then, of course, on Wednesday, the 1st, the New Year's Day game. And, of course, those are going to be the 1 p.m., 5 p.m., 8:45 p.m. slots. And then you've got the semis on that next Thursday and Friday, the 9th and the 10th. It's going to be the Orange Bowl on the 9th at 7:30, and then the Cotton Bowl on the 10th at 7:30. And then, of course, the championship, January 20th. That's a Monday, 30 p.m. Right? Feels a little late.
Wow. So we get a lot of college football. It's really moving into January, which is interesting because it makes me think, how is this going to, one, affect college basketball?
Yep.
Because I think it's going to take away big time from – there's just going to be less college basketball because NFL's also talking about adding that 18th game, and then that could move NFL back even more. But I love it. I think it's going to be really fun, and those 3 weeks are going to be jam-packed with highly competitive football, and I would assume it would be a ton of SEC teams, especially come next year, which, is super exciting down here.
Let's talk about our thoughts on this format, the 12-team format.
So just to keep it simple, like I'm just excited to see home playoff games across the schools, across the nation. The idea of hosting a playoff game in Neyland, oh my gosh.
I hate it to death. I will go down this road every single time we talk college football playoffs. College football playoffs should have never been a thing. Destroyed the value of the regular season, and college football was such a special sport because every single game mattered. Especially when you expand to 12. 4, I could understand to a degree, but when you expand to 12 teams in a league where the talent gap is so incredibly massive, not only that, you look at teams like Alabama. People are mad at them making the playoff this year. That Bama team is going to have the easiest run to the playoffs every single year because it doesn't matter when you drop 2 or 3 games. You can make it into the playoffs now. And when you have that time to grow and develop, because college football rosters take a lot of time to get that chemistry right, and they're always at their best at the end of the season, they have a lot more time to get good. And that middle of the season upset on the road, it doesn't matter. It's not special anymore. And that's what I hate so much about the expansion of the playoffs. Sure, I'm a little bit happy about more college football, but at the same time, it just means less meaningful college football.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
I haven't really considered that side, but you make a great point. Yeah, the traditional side of college football is being lost a little bit, but that's just reality at this point. We can't really stop this train that's moving.
Yeah, I feel like the traditional side of college football died with NIL. There's a lot of change coming to the game, and so
this is just a start.
It doesn't surprise me at all that the playoffs are also being affected. And I do think that like you said, the skill gap is huge, but with the way things are changing, I also wouldn't be surprised if the skill gap, particularly at the top, becomes even closer. Like the top teams, your top maybe 20 to 30 schools in the country. That talent gap between those schools, because of the transfer portal and NIL and all that, is going to get smaller. The biggest brands and you could also look at it like, oh, the smaller brands are going to get stomped out every year and it's not going to be as fun. But that the top teams are going to be super competitive every year. Those that top 20 to 30 programs where the money is there and the interest is there and the brand is there and the fan base is there, that is going to be some super fun ball.
Dom, I think you make a fantastic point, and I agree. And I think the silver lining is that, like Riley said, I think the talent gap shrinks with the current state of college football, because you bring up Alabama. I don't see Alabama being tier 1 SEC automatic right now it's sitting here in June, because they had 60 players, 50 players total between 4 different classes leave, decommit, go to the NFL in 2 different recruiting classes, current roster, and the seniors and juniors. And so that brings them back down to the playing field. There's a reason why Nick Saban got out. It's because he lost his recruiting advantage. It's because more teams are going to be more impressive on the recruiting trail. And that's my silver lining, because I agree with Dom in that it's expanding and it's getting trickier, and then more teams are involved and it gets a little messy. My hope is that the fact that the talent gap is smaller makes the regular season games meaningful, because if you do drop 2, you can't drop on rivalry week at the end of the season. If you do drop one, if you drop two, you're going to have to go to Tuscaloosa. You're going to have to go to the big house in Ann Arbor to play the first playoff game, and you're going to get smacked. And you don't want to have to do that. So I think there is a way where it can be positive, but I agree with you, Dom. I think that it needs to be cleaned up. And I think that my hope is fans will understand that every game does still matter.
I do think the talent gap is definitely going to be lessened. And I didn't necessarily mean Bama themselves, just the concept of teams
absolutely.
like Bama. But really what it comes down to for me is I'm from Boise, Idaho. I grew up a Boise State fan, and that was all we had. There was no professional team for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
And
Just corn. A lot of corn, though.
No, potatoes.
Yes.
Corn's in Indiana.
Exactly. My man's got me. But no, it's just that's what's so sad to me is that teams like Boise State, even though I know that with NIL, that was the real death knell for us regardless. It's just that was the one team that could be my hometown team. I couldn't have a hometown professional sports team. I couldn't have a marquee program, but what I had was really special, and they were able to compete on the top level miraculously. And now I just think that they're, with the way the league's moving, they're not even going to let these teams play the big names anymore. And it's going to become this really weird dungeon for all these mid-sized cities that don't have professional sports teams. And it makes me really sad. It really does, because that was one of the most special things that I had growing up, and I'm going to miss it a lot.
Well, on that note, that sad note, we got to go to break for our final segment. Now, it won't have long, but we'll talk about the finals, give some picks, obviously. And yeah, we'll be right back. It's WTK 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
Volunteer Radio is supported by Fieldhouse Social and University Commons. Hosts the Wednesday night Rock Solid Sports broadcast at 7 p.m. Fieldhouse Social serves American craft food, beer, and cocktails. Featuring UTN Pro Sports on digital TVs around the restaurant 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. FieldhouseSocial.com and their Facebook page for news and more.
WUTK received support to remain on the air from Stefano's Pizza, 10573 Hardin Valley Road. The Hardin Valley location features an expanded menu with sub sandwiches, a full bar, and big screen TVs. Gluten-free crust is available, as is craft beer on tap. Stefano's Pizza, Knoxville.com and their Facebook page.
Knoxville, be sure to tune in Wednesday nights from 8 until 10 for The Alternative, featuring 2 hours of the best in Americana music from the station that first brought Knoxville music by bands from back in the alt country days, like Green on Red, the Blasters, the Jayhawks, Uncle Tupelo and Jason and the Scorchers, to 90s Americana like the V-Roys, Whiskey Town, Gillian Welch, Wilco, and others, to modern-day Americana musicians like Margot Price, Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, Turnpike Troubadours, and Charlie Crockett. You'll also get classic Americana like Lucinda Williams, the Flying Burrito Brothers, and the Byrds. And there's local Americana by R.B. Morris, Cruz Contreras, Trisha Jean Brady, Adeem the Artist, and others. There's always Patsy Cline at 9 and chances to win Bliss gift cards and passes to upcoming Americana concerts in the area. So, if Americana music makes your musical clock tick-tock, tune in Wednesday nights at 8 for The Alternative. Sponsored by Void Chicken Grill, Bliss, and Bliss Home. And only on 90.3 The Rock, UT's College of Rock.
Welcome back to the Wednesday night Rock Solid Sports. I'm Riley, joined by Justin, Dom, and Griffin on StreamYard. And don't have a ton of time because we went a little longer on that college football talk than I was expecting. Dove into some topics I wasn't ready for. But, of course, we got the finals. We got to talk about the finals. It's right around the corner. Starts what?
Tomorrow?
Thursday?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night. And it's the Mavs, the Dallas Mavericks versus the Boston Celtics. 2 very different paths to the playoffs. We got to give our picks. Dom, start us off.
I'm going Mavs in 7. I believe in that Luka magic. I believe in that Kyrie revenge.
Ooh, all right.
I got Celtics in 7. There's a lot of stink around this team because they've been in the Final Four all the time, but they haven't been that last team standing. This team's good enough. I think they'll do it.
I think I'm going to go with the Mavericks in 6. Ooh, Griffin.
We think alike. We do. We think alike. I'm going Mavericks in 6, and here's why. And I know we're in our last minute, but I want to make this point. When has a team won a championship When has a team won a championship where they don't have a top 3 or top 5 player in the world?
Ooh, good point.
It hasn't happened.
Best starting 5 though. They got the best starting 5.
It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened, and that's why I picked Mavs. I don't know. That's just what I'm saying. And they have
How many games you
Kyrie
say?
too.
How many games?
6. They're going to win
Man.
at home. They win at home.
I think when you just add up all the parts, the Celtics just have a better team. But it's going to be an amazing finals. This is going to be cinema, like I've been saying on the Fast Break Pod. So just kick back, get your favorite drink, your favorite food.
Popcorn.
Great
like it.
minds, baby. Great minds. You know what they say. We got your alternative up next. That's it for us, the Rock Solid crew. Dom, Justin, Griffin, Riley. We will catch you on Friday.